Hello, everyone. It is Thursday, the 25th of April, 2024, and I did not do a video yesterday. I got really busy, and then Tuesday I had I guess it was a business meeting. I don't even know what you would call it, but like it was like friggin' 8 hours. Yet again, every time I have these meetings with people I haven't seen in a while, because we're catching up also, and usually like these meetings I have, it's with another person or people that are just as interesting or more interesting than me, believe it or not. Like I know that I have like a big resume for anyone that's been following my channel and saw some of the stuff that I've shared and what I've done and stuff. But like I know people that have gone like anyway. And so these are people that I can talk to because they can verify and validate things and we can discuss. And so this is leading to more discussions. And this is the stuff exactly that I was planning and trying and hoping to be able to do for the last few years. And so it's exciting, that it's actually happening, because oftentimes too throughout history, as you know, people don't even make it this far when we're going through trying times. And there are people that are speaking out on things that are, that make people a lot of money. So I'm not even talking about government at this time. I'm talking about lobbyists and corporatists and currentists, like I've talked about for years as well, that are exploiting our cabinet members, our Senate, and they're exploiting us as well, right? Because a lot of these people don't even care that they're doing it, just like Dan Crenshaw and then countless others. I can give Canadian examples as well, but anyway, it just is what it is. So there's a lot of unpacking to do, because the people I'm talking to are people that have been within or around the government for ever. And so there are some things that were like that are, tracking, and then maybe not necessarily other things. But there's a reason for that as well. There's so many different reasons for that, because there's a lot of distractions and there's a lot of people that are not, you can only be in one place at one time and you can only do one job at a time, right? So when I'm talking about people that may not be tracking this, there's a reason for it. It's not because they're ignorant or not, or lacking any of that stuff. It's because they're really busy and they're really, with other really important things. That's also part of these false flag operations, in my humble opinion, and why I want to talk to these people, because I'm like, anyway. And so just wanted to bring that up. Sparrows have just gotten mentioned a few times on my my videos, and I don't know if people know this, but I actually have sparrows tattoos as well. So I have the compass, with the 8 points, the analema, and the 33 for the east and west, how they look. And I'm not a friggin' Freemason, obviously, or I'm not part of any group at all, to be clear, because I've been accused of that as well. But I'm like, even if, like, why me would you accuse of being a Freemason? Like, that is a male only group, I believe, still. And I'm not a man. And if you think that, you're rude. So I don't know why I get all that stuff too, because like a lot of these, even the Bohemian Grove guys, like that's a male only group. And so I just find it interesting. Like I'm like, you can't say that to a woman that's a truther, which is very interesting. It's very easy to do that for the men that are in the that are exposing the truth. Or I don't even like using that word, exposing the truth. It's so annoying to say that, because it just seems almost like it's like scandalous. And it's not, right? Telling the truth is something that we're supposed to be doing, especially when it leads to less harm and less death and less suffering. And I didn't tell the lies. All I'm trying to do is clarify lies. So I'm going to get into my X feed, because visuals are a lot more interesting than space. So this is from Elon Musk, and I've also said that I'm tracking Tesla, SpaceX, all of that stuff, and the reality of the world. So I know that he's profiting and getting billions of dollars off of keeping things regarding space and a dome and electricity to himself, and not considering looking at other not free energy sources, but other energy sources where we can harness energy, like with the John Searles SEG, and with magnetrons, and with anyway. I've been talking about this whole thing about racism being really heavily pushed in the last few years, because I was saying, like, when I was in school, and it wasn't that long ago, because I was raised in the Gaspésie, but every summer and every winter, I've said this, we would go to Laval, c'est proche de Montréal, so we would go there and visit my grandparents and work and stuff like that too, and have fun and play at the parks and play at the basketball courts a lot, and And so it was more multicultural where I was. And so I was used to that, and it was not a thing. And that was a weird thing. Like our division was like the language thing. It wasn't skin color. That's the funny thing too, the interesting thing as well. And even that wasn't as bad as I'm hearing it is now. And so like the gang wars would be like the English against the French, things like that. Like it was not anything related to skin color at all. And in every single group, like it was a mix of people from various different backgrounds, because people came in to Montreal in these areas for generations from all over the place. So from Lebanese, from Lebanon, from Greece, from so many different places, you freaking name it. And even my best friend in school, her name was Angela, but like she was mulatto, but she looked black and gorgeous. Like she looked very similar to Aaliyah, and she actually sang really friggin' well too. And so like we had these talent shows and stuff like that, and she was very shy, but she would sing at these talent shows. Sarah McLachlan, and like Angel, oh my god, like literally the voice of a friggin' angel. And yes, and she was like, even with that, like we were close friends, and I did not see her in our friend groups or at LTM where we went to school. I never saw, like, it wasn't there, right, as it is now. Like you know what I mean? It's hard to explain. And then even smoking pot, you know, like that was a very mixed group too. And I didn't smoke pot, but the people in my area did smoke pot and sold it, and other things too. But like I'm going to the freaking military. Like I can't be involved or around like the illegal stuff. So like anyway, where was I going? Oh yeah, so but it's gotten a lot worse. And I was like, I'm wondering why it is. And then look at this. Look what he just friggin' threw out. Term frequency in popular U.S. newspapers. So like all your mainstream media and even the independent outlets that they use and cite. Look at this. From like 2014, 2015, or 2016-ish. Look how much it blew up the term racist, racists, and racism. Like, look at this. This is left and right media. This is like this is crazy. And I'm like, you know what? It friggin' makes sense, because like, look, like, you know, this is kind of the area that I went to. Like I graduated, you know, in 2001, high school. Or no, sorry, 2000. But like, born in 82. Yeah. And then now it's just wild. It's just wild. And mainstream media and education systems and stuff like that. So people that are in government, and I've said this before, they're not supposed to, but people like CSIS using people that are part of Vice News, like a leftist conspiracy theorist journalism team, like citing them to make declarations about emergency acts and threat assessments. Like that is not on. Okay, so even today I'll show this, but CSIS is saying that if you see like a threat to Canada, report it, which also sounds like very North Korea-ish, but it's also like, yeah, people have been trying to share with you information now for years. You are just deciding not to actually take a look at the information from really high-level government people that I know for a fact have been trying to share this stuff with you guys. And I have also been trying to share information with CSIS, and even Jeremy McKenzie from Diagolon, which is like a parody humorous channel. He has also repeatedly tried to share with CSIS governmental, medical, and scientific data, and multiple government. And so even my friend Helen Gruce, Ottawa Police Services, she was in it over 20 years. She's still in the courts because she was targeted, because she was investigating and making the links, the correlations or possible correlations and links from the, I'm on YouTube again. From the thing. And younger, oh my God, I don't know how to say it. This is so freaking annoying. Anyway, for the last 4 years, but especially in the last 2 years, Helen Gruce, if you take a look at her, she's been in the courts. You can see why. They don't really explain it well. So if you want to get a good non-biased account, it would be from someone named Donald Best. Just as it sounds, that's how you spell it. And he has like the non-biased reporting. And so there's people within government and lawyers and legal teams, like I've been saying, that are have been trying for years to get this to cabinet. Cabinet's not listening to anyone. We've also been emailing them and calling them and asking for follow-ups. Like so many people that I know that are getting called conspiracy theorists. We're like, we're not theorists, first of all, because we're giving you actually objective data, and you're just refusing to actually look at it. And some of the excuses I've gotten back is, oh, the links might be like not good. Like it might be like a malware or something like that. I'm like, first of all, if you're government, like you should be on a VPN and you should have a secure network, so it wouldn't matter. And be able to get around any type of like cyber attack. I'm like, you're not even that level yet, lady and gentlemen. Are you top secret or secret? Like anyway. Oh my! It just frustrates me that people are so lazy and ignorant, and they refuse to look at information because then they'd have to consider it. Because once you know better, you do better. So all of these people that are getting 6 figures a year that are dictating and voting on measures and mandates and wars that we get ourselves involved into, they're hiding their accountability piece completely. They're like, oh, it's not my fault, not my fault. No, but yes, it is, because you guys are the ones that are voting on wars that are proxy wars and false flags, and you're lying about what's happening. And people like myself are trying to clarify and say that's not what is happening at all. Here's what's actually happening. So look at my Rumble account, Don189, because you're not going to find it anywhere else to the degrees that I have shared. Anyway, and that's why it's important that people have meetings and or discussions with people in a peaceful way, in a rational way, because like that's the only way, the only viable way that we can, unfuck this, I guess. Like we're like, this is ridiculous. So the first city in Canada to require a QR code. No, I shared it twice. And it would be Île de Sainte-Madeleine.
Alors, je me nomme Jeanne Bourgeois. Je suis plutôt ici pour parler de comment rentrer, sortir comme Madelinienne sur le territoire de ma municipalité.
Okay, so she's saying that they're going to be requiring she's going to have to be clarified here, but to come in and out of Île de la Madeleine, needing a QR code. So we have now our government that's making this, they're just passing it. C'est en français, donc il y a beaucoup de monde qui comprend pas français, même en Canada. Especially now, like there's not a lot of people in Canada anymore that speak French, so no one's tracking this. So she's asking questions. This is getting announced in Quebec, and this is a slimy way to do this. And so like these QR code things, this is the stuff that's getting to China levels, and this is what I'm saying. We're getting China-fied, and no fucking thank you. And I mean that respectfully. But I'm just saying what's going on there with the Communist Party and with people that are born into slavery, people that are like that are sex slave. Like there's so much stuff going on there. And it's so many freedoms being taken away for comfort, and it's not sustainable. And we do not want that in Canada. Like I've said, there, like we need to be peaceful, but this stuff we need to we do not want to be like the countries that are overdeveloped, overpolluted, dealing with so much stuff that you don't even know or see or hear about. Okay, with the gang rapes and the crime, like you have no idea what's going on in these places that are overdeveloped, and people are leaving those areas instead of expanding outwards. Okay, because they're also lazy and are not people that are thinking about the community clearly, right? That's why I have not left Canada yet, even though people within my community, they're like, why are you in Canada still? Why are you in Ottawa? And I'm like, I don't fucking know, anymore. Because like there's people I know that are in Mexico, they're in Costa Rica, they're in Texas, they're in friggin' Montana, they're in Bulgaria, they're in, you friggin' name it. They're not in Canada anymore because they saw the writing on the wall. And even with the extreme cost of living in the last 2 years, they're like, worth it. Better weather, better people. I'm not saying this is them saying it. And yeah. And they're saying the writing's on the wall because people are not peacefully talking about what's going on, right? And so not even just the QR code, I'll get into that more, but like this is something that peaceful we should be contacting Île de la Madeleine with these people peacefully. Her name is Jean Bourgeois, Bourgeois. Like maybe even like follow her account. Share.
Ou de l'agglomération municipale des Îles de la Madeleine.
Donc, c'est très simple, Mme Bourgeois. Vous n'avez absolument rien à payer comme redevance ou passe archipel, étant donné que vous avez une résidence ici aux Îles de la Madeleine. Vous avez déjà un compte de taxe foncière. Vous participez.
Oh my God, he's trying to say like, oh, if you already live in Île de la Madeleine, like you're already paying taxes and you're already being, anyway.
Et contribuer déjà
déjà beaucoup.
C'est ça, aux objectifs de la passe.
Vous avez bien parlé que ça prendrait un code QR pour entrer aux Îles de la Madeleine?
Pas pour rentrer, pour sortir.
You don't need it to go into Île de la Madeleine. You need the QR code to get out.
OK.
Donc, les Madelinots, qu'est-ce qu'on va devoir présenter, nous?
Un permis de conduire avec une pièce d'identité avec une adresse aux îles, il n'y a pas de problème.
OK, ça veut dire que c'est la première fois au Canada qu'on va devoir
Piece of identity, like your driver's license having a fucking QR code on it, guys.
montrer un permis de conduire pour sortir d'une municipalité.
En fait,
Ça s'est jamais fait.
En fait, vous le faites à chaque fois que vous prenez l'avion puis le bateau.
Non, je le fais pour
and
payer
he's
un
saying-
service.
So you have to do the same thing for a boat or a plane. And then
Du
she
bateau.
just, no.
Quelle loi vous permet d'exiger
So, nah, and then she was saying it was a business. That's a service. And that's a good point too, because you buy a plane ticket, that's a service to go to a place either for business or for pleasure. And the same thing with the boat. Like it's not required for your regular daily duties and responsibilities and stuff like that. Like you're paying taxes for the roads, you're paying or you should be. We're not doing that anymore. My God. Anyway, I'm just loosely translating.
qu'on montre un papier pour entrer dans une municipalité.
On demande une pièce d'identification pour s'assurer de la conformité à notre règlement municipal. Donc, OK?
He's requiring this type of ID is what he's saying to conform to the entire municipality. So now they're doing the same thing again. It's like they're going to be appealing to the majority. Oh, like everyone in the area is going to have to do it. Everyone there, and then so they're going to get buy-in from people, all right? So like when you already start getting people that are easily and naively duped into doing things like this because they don't see like the long-term ramifications or like what's actually being done. Maybe even this guy doesn't realize what he's doing. Okay. Maybe he was blackmailed, bribed, or, ego and like doesn't give a fuck about his community at all, clearly. And he doesn't understand that this is part of introducing, this will be the first time we introduce these fucking parasitic measures that's going to infest the rest of Canada. Okay. So this is why we cannot allow this to happen. I mean, peacefully, I would urge and recommend that we don't allow our country to get fucked over these silly measures. There's a reason for it. And this is not even like the worst that I'm going to talk about. Like, I'm going to blow your fucking mind with how crazy Canada is trying to push things right now. Not Canada, sorry. People within the higher levels of government, like Justin Trudeau and Chrystia Freeland and these people, it's they need to be arrested, criminally investigated, and they need to be fired. They're not going to resign. And they're just pushing measures that are going to not be reversible. Just like this whole trans movement, when they're like pushing hormone blockers and sterilization on children, like that's not reversible. And there are people that have detransitioned that are not even getting the respect or the voice or the platform that they deserve to talk about their detransitioning and how hard it was and how they regret what they did. And the parents overwhelmingly regret what they did. And then a lot of even parents speaking out saying they were literally threatened, okay, in subtle ways about like, like, do you want to have like a, like a dead daughter or an alive son type thing? You know what I mean? They said like, oh, like the outcome is death if you don't do this or support this and or being taken away from the home. And then having the kids seek out attention and or validation elsewhere. And a lot of schools now have people where it's easily identifiable with the fucking pins they wear, like who you can go to talk to about fucking anyway. Just a little bit of a mess here. So Trudeau government makes it so the military can be used on Canadian citizens. Now Goderic has the military going door to door to do wellness checks for an exercise. Not good. Reporter asks Trudeau about disturbing clause in new military framework and funding, which Trudeau does not answer. One of the things I noticed in the new document was the Canadian Armed Forces helping domestic laws enforcement in Canada. And Bill Blair is not an expert in anything. He is the Minister of National Defense. He is guilty of crimes against humanity during the G20 summit in 2010 and using crisis actors to elicit emotional responses in people to try to stage and create a riot. And then doing the same thing during the Freedom Convoy, including knowing that Brian Fox was in the crowd and others like him, eliciting emotional responses in people using flags and other props, and then pretending to be white right-wing supremacists and all of that stuff in order to get us into declare the Emergency Act that first weekend, and then declare DOMOPS, domestic and against terrorists, suspecting terrorists. Again, that's how they were trying to paint the unvaccinated people as, including David Lametti and Marco Menachino, public safety officer who wanted to employ tanks on innocent civilians as well. And they were joking about it, despite the fact that they couldn't even make it during the first week of basic training or boot camp because they're pussies. They're little pussies. And he's a little pussy and is a liar. And the fact that he's not arrested yet, or at least fired, is showing you that there are people that are trying way above my credentials. Like there's lawyer teams, like I've said, with decades in. In fact, I think I might actually have shared that, but a high-ranking judge from Quebec that had like decades in law, like saying that over the last 4 years, he just slammed. He's like, over the last 4 years, he saw abuses and mismanagement and discrediting people that shouldn't have been discredited, and deceit and corruption at the highest fucking levels of government. He's talking about Justin Trudeau and Jagmeet Singh. He's talking about cabinet. He's not talking about the people on the front lines or the people that are trying to advise these people. Because he's saying, like, people have been trying to advise them. And he was like, and I know for a fact too that CSIS tried to advise them. Global Affairs tried to advise them, despite how I feel about the name Global Affairs, this not being a globe. Anyway, but really good people working within that need my training, again, like what I was teaching the SRDTs, like who they're going with, they're failing them, and they're teaching them lies about situations internationally. And they're supposed to be responding to natural and man-made disasters, knowing exactly what the fuck went on. Anyway, and so I am of service. Call me and I will do the training again, because it's already something that I had been doing for years. A military exercise will be conducted in Goderic and through Huron and Bruce counties. And this is Ontario. This is what I mean. It's so frustrating. So a military exercise will be conducted in Goderic and throughout Huron and Bruce counties. I would be interested to see if they have any threat assessment, risk assessment, any hazmat assessments, on the impact of their vehicles on POL, like parking, where they're going to be parked, there's so many like impact statements, I guess. Why? So military exercise 2024, Canada's prettiest town. The Canadian Armed Forces will be conducting an emergency exercise in Huron and Bruce counties between Friday, May 3rd and Sunday, May 5th. So this is probably reserve elements, likely. Soldiers will be stationed in the community over the weekend. And so even with reservists, it's like I was a Brigade G3 operations for 33 Brigade. So I was doing the G3 operations, managing 17 reserve units, and then doing like the bi-weekly cohorts. Like I was basically running that, like with one other, well, no, he was not a micromanager. My boss was not a micromanager, allowing me to do that stuff. And then he was like, he could fire and forget. With me, a lot of people, you cannot do that. And so, yes, I was not the one that was like overall in charge. I was not. I'm not saying that. There was a cost and stuff like that, but they were busy doing other things. And so I would manage like the lower level stuff, just like 2 ICs do, I guess, if you're familiar with. Anyway, establishing cooling centers as well as other activities. These exercises will be conducted throughout Huron and Bruce counties. Wait a minute. Soldiers will be conducting firefighting training. And so that as well, all these like fires that we've had in Canada, it has been confirmed has been arson. And I will also say dues, and I'll just leave it at that. Look at Dutch Sensei if you want more news on that. And so this is all like fear mongering. And so like fear and making people lose morale is exactly how you enslave people. So soldiers will be going door to door and speaking with residents to simulate what would happen if they were asked to check on the well-beings of residents during an actual emergency. I don't like this at all. I understand where this is coming from, but you should not be using civilians. You need to be using actors like we've done throughout the generations. Okay, going like actually civilians, like there's already law enforcement and construction workers and other people that are going literally within meters of homes and impacting homes and chronic noise and stuff like that, like simulating war. And it's by design. And I've said this happens every fucking area before wars and societal collapse. This is all planting seeds and staging the set, whatever you want to call it. And so people should not be allowing peacefully, obviously, like, but maybe even have a sign out like off of your front gate, like no military people to come on my property. I do not support this exercise. It can be as simple as that. And then what's frustrating is it's now like it would be making you fucking nervous too, because like, oh, are you gonna be on a goddamn list? Just like anyone who donated to the Freedom Convoy, this is the thing. It's also like, but I mean, this is what we have to do, right? Because we can't just allow people, especially people within government, to have overreach, even military. And this is me as a veteran saying this. This is me that's someone that still works with military people and talks to military people on a fucking literal daily basis, multiple times a day. And I'm saying, don't do this. And they're saying the same things. They're like, yeah, this is pretty sketch. Like, I'm not gonna lie. Like, there's a lot of people agreeing with this, like even the higher levels, because they know and they've been to other fucking countries conducting operations and stuff like that. Like, not just visiting palaces and not just visiting like capital regions and getting, you know, set like people like Yuri Bezmenov has talked about this. A lot of government people that do the meetings internationally, people like in cabinet, for example, and the expert advisors they choose that are not experts, they get lied to. No duh. Spoiler alert. They're not told the reality of what's going on in a lot of places. So, okay, yeah, so I was right. So this was 31 Canadian Brigade Group Public Affairs Officer Lieutenant Paul Verhey. So he's a public servant. He works for you. paul.verhey@forces.gc.ca. I would peacefully email and say that, you know, people within Canada do not support these types of DOMOPS, and then give reasons why. Like I would give, like, you know, when there's a military presence that are enforcing measures within their own countries, first they try to make it look like they always make it look like it's for your best interest, and or if they can't do that, they create the Hegelian dialect. Okay, they'll create an emergency like fires or floods and things like that in order to push people out, and they make it look like, oh, like here's an answer to your prayers. Oh, like we'll buy you out. Like, oh, your home got destroyed. Oh, like, we can't build on that area anymore because of following reasons, right? And it's people that want to take over those areas, and or that's what you get for not complying with overreach. So peacefully, because it's the only way out of this stuff. Like, they have everything that they can like at their disposal to use against us. And desensitize. Yeah, you guys are getting it. Oh, DOMOPS. Sorry, domestic operations, domestic military operations. Yeah, sorry, I should have said that. I'm like, that's what I mean. Like, I'm so used to like even like when I write like doing like the acronyms. Domestic military operations. I don't know if they still call it that. They used to call it DOMOPS. Problem, reaction, solution. Yeah, 100%. 100%. Yeah, so I'm sure that they're and they're reservists, right? So like a lot of these people don't know either what they're getting themselves into, right? They're some of these people can likely be like full-time or part-time, like firefighters. There's a lot of volunteer firefighters that are also in the reserves, law enforcement, business owners, multiple different types of people that are actually in the reserves. And it's on weekends. You know, you can do training in the summers, and you don't even have to do like full level training like regular force members have to do. There's not like there's different contracts and commitment levels and stuff like that. And so that's also something where we have to look at, and how much national pride people have as opposed to international interest, and so many different ways about that as well. And I was actually going to talk about that. I know I'm rambling, and I do need to get ready because I had to get a new house insurance company, because the one I had been with for many, many years, because of the fireplace, even though it's wet certified, they didn't want to renew. And I don't think it has anything to do with that. I think it has to do with they're trying to push people out of rural areas and or people that have like an alternate form of heat source, because they want to punish people and then make people live in fear. Like, oh shit, like now insurance companies, because insurance companies work with banks and they work with corporations, and so if they want it where like people won't get approved, let's say they have a log cabin, which a lot of people do on the outskirts of Canada, right? People that have been living for hundreds of years in like small towns, rural areas, you know, even the Gaspésie, for example. A lot of the homes are wood homes. Like, no shit, they're using the materials around them, and these homes have lasted for decades and generations. And they're spread apart and stuff like that, and it's hard work and hard labor, and but like managing the soil, because like it is its own solar panel, and like you need the soil to be properly fertilized and maintained in order to provide for food and substance for animals and for humans. And there's a filtration as well of the gases within the atmosphere that you need to have people managing the soil in order to correct. Like I kept on saying that. I know I'm being redundant. I'm very, very sorry, but I will admit, I did drink on Tuesday during the meeting and stuff like that, or the discussion. I'm not used to it anymore, and so like I was also like super sick yesterday and hungover, and I still am. I think I'm gonna be hungover for like a week. And it wasn't extreme. It's just, I wasn't, like, again, it's just like when you don't drink often anymore, it's just, and when you're older, it just takes longer. I don't know where I was going with that. Anyway, so this is the contact information. I would just discuss things in a peaceful way. Like, have you considered that, you know, this could be setting the stage for things like what's happening in countries that are run by dictators, communist dictators, and how it may be seen as something that's innocent now. It might not necessarily be something that is designed or created or implemented in order to help. And even with FEMA, I've talked about this before, but they've also like staged and planned natural and man-made disasters in order to push people out of areas. And they have, interestingly enough, always been involved in areas days, if not weeks and months before big events have happened, including 9/11, including wildfires in Lahaina and other areas of the world, Chile and Israel and Ukraine. And people need to look at this stuff a little bit more seriously. There's so many things I want to share, but this is from Stanton.
This is the Rebel.
Oh, sorry. This is from Stanton Cree 420. Oh, I didn't like it yet. It's because I'm talking about FEMA. I might as well start with this video.
This is the Rebel Call channel. Welcome to today's show. I have to show you what aired on CNBC in the last 24 hours. And it's a video, and there's news articles out there from NBC talking about how the U.S. government is buying and then destroying homes. And they're trying to explain to you why, because they don't want you to be suspicious at all as to, you know,
alcohol is poison. You're not wrong. That is a fact. And it takes you away from your connection to God and spirit, and it makes you more easily able, makes you resist temptation. Sorry, opposite of that. It makes you not resist temptation more. Like you're more easily malleable, more easily brainwashed, more easily tempted into doing things you wouldn't necessarily do. Poorer sleep. Losing so many different micronutrients and stuff like that, and like the body is like inflamed as it's trying to recover from like the alcohol and stuff like that as well. And now they're putting in more chemicals, more pesticides, and harmful like chemicals, whatever you want to call it, on the supply system, like the grapes and like other vegetables they use for alcohol. Yeah, no, I'm not like that's what I mean. I hope I don't. I hope it doesn't sound like I'm promoting drinking at all. I am not. But I'm just saying I'm not perfect, and sometimes I do. Yeah, but no, I shouldn't.
Why the government is using your tax money to buy up homes in areas that are conveniently getting wiped out by weather that the government is creating, and then the government, if you're able to salvage your home in that area that's clearly got a bullseye on it, well, the government will come in and say, hey, you know, we might have missed out on damaging your home, but there's a chance it could end up being flooded anyway in the long run. How about we just use our taxpayers' money and we buy your home? Huh? Well, of course, anybody out there who's paying attention to what the government's doing knows exactly why the government's doing this. I mean, you can take a look at Maui, for example, right?
They're saying government because like that's who they're using. And unfortunately, like the lobbyists and the corporatists and the crunchists that I'm talking about, they all are in cabinet and working with them as their advisory teams and stuff like that. They're not actually using the government. They're using third-party organizations because they know that they would be more likely to turn against Canadians or do harmful things against Canadians because, you know, they don't respect Canadians. Like there's different cultures and traditions. You know, there's again like less vested interest in like the outcome of the country, because like you if you left your country without protecting it or defending it or moving in the outskirts and building a home and trying to live more off the land and stuff like that, like living more free, but with less comfort, especially in these areas. Like, I don't understand, like in Canada, I did it. Like, and people I know live like further outside the suburbs and cities now, because that's how, a large percentage of the population should be living. I've said before, it should be a split of like 60-40 rural And then like the suburb city areas, because like we used to have suburbs, but in the last 4 years, Stephen Guilbeault and Justin Trudeau and Chrystia Freeland and companies like Taggart, et cetera, they have exploited us and completely decimated the suburbs, and any protected lands that were around these areas have been also shredded. Those trees that were even hundreds of years old, like I'm saying millions and millions of trees have been destroyed. Not in the outskirts. No. It's in areas that are making, so no more middle class. Anyways, but you need people in the outskirts, what I'm saying, to like manage the land in order to grow the food, and then to manage the animals, and then you assist with the filtration and preserve that piece. And it's incredibly important. So even with the carbon scam, what's going on, right? Like carbon makes up 0.04% of the population, and there's been times where it's been higher. And this is not what we're like. You should not be contributing that to what we're dealing with these extreme temperatures. All right, because the way that people are testing and measuring for extreme temperatures, people are doing it on tarmacs, on black tarmacs, and or like ridiculously, just lying about their credentials and lying about results. And people are buying into it, and it's just really, really frustrating that even the references are just more bullshit propaganda sources. And it's like, where is the objective, measurable, repeatable, observable data that you're sorting, or so that you're citing or referencing in order to come up with all these carbon scam taxes and stuff like that? And so anyway, more farmers are actually, and people living in rural areas, because we're getting punished. We're paying a lot more taxes for insurance now, or not getting approved for insurance, which means like no mortgages. Figure that one out. And or people are saying that we need to go carbon neutral. Oh my God. Like, anyway, I'm not even going to talk about that stuff. I'm going to let this video play, because
a lot of people in Maui didn't want to sell their homes to corporations like BlackRock and Vanguard. They didn't want to leave Maui in general. So once they got hit with the direct energy.
Okay, I was going to stop this video, but like, oh my goodness. Europe is making May Chemtrail Awareness Month. I got to look into that too. And literally for years, I was saying to so many different people about chemtrails and contrails and contrails, and what they were considering to be contrails. I'm like, that's actually they're actually emitting harmful particles and particulates in the air, and especially at the quantities they're doing, and for the amount of time that they've been doing it. And people were calling me fucking nuts. People that I've known for years, like I'm literally telling you, even in the last couple of months, I was told that it's not happening, and even asking for access to information requests. People within government even denying that, like Transport Canada, and we have the names too. Like they're denying this is happening. I'm like, this idiot didn't even search at all, because to deny, like even things like aluminum oxide and the sulfur oxides and the silver iodide and like all these other things, they're saying no. Now literally in the last couple of months, and I think you should credit Ethos and Eris from Canada and his show, and he's on Discord. He has a channel on Discord, and he has like literally folders that is broken down to all these access to information requests he's put in for so many different things, including MAID in Canada, and 99 pages of documents that were submitted to him about recommendations of MAID to veterans. And you only have like the 10 years raw data, but I think he was looking at it. I think he was requesting just from COVID onwards. So and so during COVID, that spiked 2021, 2022. There was a huge push for people to be incentivized and or groomed into saying things suggesting MAID. Disgusting. So again, even Veterans Affairs employees, they were groomed, and there was an agenda pushed onto them. And then there were psycho people that bit. Again, there's a lot of people that work in Veterans Affairs Canada, and out of them, it was a very, very small minority. And these are the people you have to fucking watch out for, because out of society, you have a bell curve, and you have people that are on the extreme left and the extreme right end of that behavioral spectrum. And then you have the majority, right? So that's why in communities, you can't have anarchy. Like there should be a system of governance in place in order to protect people from the people on the extremes. These people will exploit these people. These people will brainwash and exploit these people. Usually anyway. And so, so people need to be safeguarded and protected against people like that. And especially when you get higher level populations, there's going to be more of a percentage of people, or sorry, not more of a, like more people that are predators and prey, just by virtue of a increase in population. Other things we have to look at.
Energy weapon. They didn't really have a choice. They were eventually formed into what will be eventual permanent.
I know people that contacted me, obviously veterans, because my name was out there, because I'm also part of Operational Stress Injury Social Support. It's a peer support network, Canada wide. And yeah, I've been part of that for like over a decade now, maybe more. And it's dealing with people. You have to have a stress injury from operations, even to be qualified to be a supporter through OSIS. And you have to go through like extended training and stuff like that as well. And it's confidential. It's all confidential. And so like if there's people in your areas that are dealing with things, even if it's like 3 o'clock in the morning, I've dealt with that, where you respond to people that are first responder types that are dealing with a lot of heavy shit, so that they're not suffering, because a lot of people suffer in silence and just drink alone. And I'm guilty of that as well. And suffer in silence. But there are people out there. It's not cowardly to call on someone like me, for example, and talk to me about things, because there's going to be no shame or judgment. I'm going to understand what you're going through, and then we can talk through it.
FEMA camps. Now, for those of you that don't know, FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, is the same government agency that we've seen over the last 20 to 25 years that has spent our tax money on buying millions, and I mean millions, of coffins. If you haven't seen all those pictures of coffins lining up on the side of highways and in the middle of government-owned properties, well, of course, those are coffins for us, and we just saw the first round of why they needed those coffins, really. And FEMA are the same people that conveniently show up whenever whenever a hurricane or a tornado organically appears. Well, FEMA will show up, and of course, they'll provide aid. They'll tell you to leave your home. They'll tell you to come with them, come into these little safe haven homes that we have built up. It's a little safe haven community. Don't be suspicious of these little communities that look like little prison cells that we've built around Maui. Don't be suspicious. We're doing this to help you. And of course, eventually, when people don't have a choice, they'll be going in there and they'll have to have a mandated, inside their body to enter. But while FEMA is doing that, people out there don't realize that FEMA is actually scooping up these properties. So think about it from this perspective. The government, which has the ability to weaponize weather, look no further than what we just saw in Dubai, how they're trying to, and told us they want to change the infrastructure in Dubai. It's going to eventually be a major smart city hub. Well, what they've done is they've flooded it out. And they don't want you to be suspicious of the fact that they've openly bragged about having the ability to do that. Well, everybody out there should know the government has the ability to do it. This is patented. This is something that the government in the United States used during Vietnam, and it's something they use every day. They use it in Katrina. They continue to use it, right? So what we're seeing is the government is using weaponized weather. They're drilling homes in clearly areas they want to herd like sheep or cattle. They want to move people out of these areas. So they're drilling at weaponized weather. FEMA's coming in and providing quote unquote assistance. But people out there don't realize that FEMA is literally offering your tax money to give to these people who have land on this specific property, so that in the event they think they're going to rebuild or want to use their insurance money on it, well, don't even worry about it. Don't be suspicious that the government, who doesn't have the authority to do this, is coming in and offering to buy out the property of these people who are either having floods or could potentially be the victims of floods in these areas, which of course the government has marked out because they clearly want these areas. It's a government land grab. And don't be surprised, again, if they end up taking that land and building giant FEMA camps on those land. But clearly they don't want you living in these areas. And this is a way that the government is tricking people out there into giving them their land, right? Remember, our government is in so much debt. This is what they tell us day in and day out. But they can afford this, right? Don't think about the mortgages and the connection between the government and the banks. How in the world the government is allowed to do this, right? Don't think about that. What people are actually aware that their government is buying up land and seizing land? Nobody is, right? So when CNBC puts this story out there, people out there should be waking up. And even in the comment section, you do see people who don't understand what's going on, right? And then they don't understand what's going on in Maui. Then they say, but wait a minute, I thought there was a housing shortage. And we have the government buying people's land and then they're just bulldozing it and leaving it? Well, exactly. Your tax money is helping fund the government's destruction of the United States of America and ultimately hurting all these people out of all this area of land to move them into a more compound, smart prison, Okay. This is what aired on CNBC. And yes, people in the comment section, surprisingly, weren't understanding. But of course, they'll never understand. If they don't see this and understand that this is government overreach, that why in the world would the government, why would they take this under their hand? Why would they have anything to do with this? Okay. The people who bought the property are liable for this, right? They bought property in an area that could eventually be flooded. If that eventually happens, well, you have homeowners insurance, et cetera. You have flooders insurance, et cetera, et cetera. But the government seems really concerned about this area of land. So what they're doing is they're hitting it with weaponized weather. Then they're coming in. And if your house didn't get destroyed, well, the government is going to tip you off with a little bit of cash coming out of our pockets to make sure you do leave, which shows us that they are literally hurting people using weaponized weather. Look at this.
The U.S. government is buying up and then destroying American homes like this one. Some homeowners in floodplains may voluntarily sell their doomed properties to the government.
Since 1989, FEMA has funded something on the order of 45 to 50,000 home buyouts.
FEMA is estimated to have spent somewhere around $4 billion on the project so far. But that's just a fraction of the total amount spent on buyouts, since there are programs outside of FEMA. But not everyone is convinced buyouts are a good idea.
It's a bit of a mixed bag. I think in some cases they're successful and in some cases they're not.
Any person that is moved out of harm's way is a positive move forward, provided that they're given appropriate resources to move and to start their lives anew somewhere else.
Because there's so much variation, sometimes buyouts are heartbreaking and sometimes they're a celebration.
Kind of tugs at my heart a little bit. I was there for 17 years. I'm like, they're going to tear this house that I was living in down. I miss the neighborhood, but I'm happy in this location. It's not in a flood zone.
Buying up homes and demolishing them seems pretty counterintuitive to solving the housing crisis. The U.S. is still short up to 7.2 million homes.
We're talking about a crisis of affordability in housing across the country, combined with the crisis of the climate change effects. How do we ensure that we provide for our population while making sure that they're not in harm's way?
So do floodplain buyouts help or hurt American homeowners? And can the U.S. afford to bail out communities?
Nope. The general way that floodplain buyouts work is that a disaster occurs, there's damage done to people's homes. The community, the local government, they decide that it might make sense to offer buyouts to residents in those damaged areas. Most often, the local government and the state then request funding from the federal government. They receive the funding. They make an offer to purchase a home from someone who has a damaged home. That homeowner decides whether or not to sell. If they sell, they relocate somewhere else. The government owns the property. They demolish the home and create open space. And there are almost infinite variations at every single one of those stages I just described, but that's the really general process.
These homes are often located in the floodplain or an area that is deemed likely to flood. One of the most successful buyout programs has been in
floodplains. There are people that have reported being in areas for hundreds of years and experiencing floods only in the last few years. People are saying that over, and these fires we are proving time and time again, they're being started by people and dudes and freaking lasers. I know that sounds, but come back to this video 3 years from now when it's public record, or look at my videos on Rumble, Don189, because they're definitely deleted from YouTube. There are man-made disasters that are being blamed on man-made disasters. And this is why I have been trying to reach out to people within Canadian government, the higher levels, the people that respond to the natural and man-made disasters. These are the people that need to know this information and be tracking this information and aware of this information. So people within my network, they're like, if you get back into this training again, I'm going to feel a lot more at ease in my life. They're like, because it just since 2020, they're like, people are even saying it seems that people are getting a lot more fucked over, blatantly obvious, since I wasn't vaccinated. So first my contracts got delayed during the pandemic, and I was talking about the Wuhan lab leak right from early on, and then showing the VAERS reports that were coming out. I was showing medical, scientific, and government data, even again to the higher levels of global affairs and CSIS and CBSA and CSEC and all levels of government and cabinet. And I I was giving my resume. I was like, I've trained this. I'm like, I literally I'm like, since 2016 onwards. And I'm like, I incorporated in 2018, literally for these courses to train internationally, even people that are part of like DART, for example. And like people like my course started getting attention and then pandemic. And then like people are not using me. And I'm telling them like about Afghanistan. I'm telling them about Ukraine, Russia years and months in advance. And, Israel, Palestine, and the pandemic, all of these things, right? And so if I was still teaching and working, even as a consultant and an analyst for the people that I was working with literally just before this fucking happened, things would have not kicked off in Canada the way they did. And that's not a brag or anything like that. Like, it's just, that was literally the work that I was doing. And I have plenty of proof and facts to attest to that and confirm that. And then trying to reach out saying I will teach you the hostile environment awareness training pieces. I'll teach it to government. I'll teach it to the fucking mainstream media. I will literally, those contracts were getting lined up, like even with CTV. And then all of a sudden people probably took a look at what I was sharing and they're like, no. But I was even literally like had contracts that were going to be in place for me, literally for mainstream media to teach them these courses. And I was teaching them already for years. And I'm like, you guys absolutely fucking need it. You absolutely need it. And anyone that's a journalist too, they need the courses that I teach, because if you're going to be talking to people on the news in Canada, news we can trust, you need to get it from a reliable fucking source and not these embeds or these like crisis actors or these fakies all over the world that you're using. My friends, that was another rant. I also wanted to say, like, I got a little emotional before. So I stepped out for a minute, and but that's also with drinking as well. It makes me not able to manage my emotions as much, and so that's another reason why, like, don't drink if you don't have to.
In the area near Charlotte, North Carolina, where there's almost 20,000 acres of floodplain. Over 475 homes have been purchased since 1999, relocating over 785 families and businesses outside of the floodplain.
My name is Andrea Jones. I'm 59 years old and I work for a bank. So I've been in the banking industry for 36 years now. Amazing. And I moved here to start that job and I stayed. Didn't have a reason to move back to South Carolina until now. I moved with the buyout program in May of 2023. So 10 months now. 11 months now.
2023.
I do consider myself a member of the Charlotte-Mecklenburg community because I still work there, and that's where I do the majority of my shopping. My doctors are still there. I didn't move any of that because I'm not that far away. So I am still a member of the community. I just don't live there anymore.
The county says $90.5 million have been invested from federal, state, local, and other sources, and claims it has avoided $40.9 million in losses. Some of the largest programs that support floodplain buyouts are FEMA's Hazard Mitigation Grant and 3 programs from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, or HUD.
They all come with different requirements and different provisions.
I do appreciate that. Yeah, you're right. Like lobbyists and corporatists that are working for the major companies like Lockheed Martin and Raytheon and JP Morgan and countless others, and checking into Aladdin too, by the way, people. I've been talking about that for years, but I guarantee that's going to be coming out soon again. There are a lot of people I know, like that's the unfortunate thing, that have so much credibility to back up what they're saying. People that have served Canadians like internationally for decades and have multiple deployments in so many different capacities, and not hurting people, but it's convoluted, but they're trying to give this information or trying to give information to people that are not looking at it. And it's people that are bought, paid for, controlled, or just don't give a shit because they just don't have that respect for people. Like I was saying, the Justin Trudeau types, when he was a kid, I'm going to say this probably a few more times throughout the years. He had like a high-ranking RCMP officer that I was told by a credible source, someone that's been in Ottawa and his family's been in Ottawa for generations. And he knows people that are doctors and lawyers, like international government, all of this stuff. And he talks to a lot of people. He's well-connected. And he was saying that, like in his group, he was saying that his friend, it was his father. He was a RCMP officer, high-ranking. And Justin Trudeau was 7 years old, going on a plane. And he threw, and it was raining and he threw his friggin' jacket on the ground in the mud. And then he told this friggin' RCMP officer to like pick it up, you know, and it was so fucking disrespectful. And it's like that is alarming me, because like that is a learned behavior. And so he was a child. And so like that's not blaming him, that's blaming his parents and people within his community that didn't check that and correct that. Because like I've said, my ass would have been so beat if I couldn't even fathom doing something like that, just because of how absurd. Especially like my family didn't raise me that way. I'm not saying they were perfect at all. They were not. No one is. But yeah, that behavior would have been corrected and not enforced and further developed and stuff like that. So like even at a young age, like he was disrespecting high-ranking law enforcement. That's my point to that. So it likely would get worse after that if that's how it is, you know, and that's how your family is. And even with his parents, like people should go down that rabbit hole as well, with Justin Trudeau and his mother being a child when Pierre was water skiing or whatever like that in BC, and thought she was cute or whatever. And then she, a few years later, apparently was when she was groomed into being his wife. And then she had children with him, including Justin Trudeau, who was the first child, you know, born on the 25th of December. And where was I going with that? She remarried and stuff like that as well. But her in her family, like she has a strong lineage with Scotland and Ireland and India, right? So there are people from her family lineage that, you know, were from Europe and then also moved to India and had lived in India for a very long time during, you know, the 16, 17, and 1800s, actually. And actually even into 1906, there were people that came from India from his mother's side and landed in BC. And then from there immigrated to other areas, including Pierre and his new young wife moving to Ottawa. No, sorry, his mother did, moving to Ottawa. And she was also someone that was very young with a very older man, procreating to have his mother, Margaret Trudeau. Sinclair was her original name, her maiden name, her maiden name, Sinclair. And people do allege that the Betsy Ross is correlated with his family, and it's a different Betsy Ross, right? And so like even the years are significantly different, and the parents. And so people don't properly look, even journalists don't even properly look into family lineages, right? And so, you know, you got the Betsy Ross, like the alleged flag sister with George Washington, assisted him with sewing the flag and getting it together. And that's another rabbit hole with Betsy Ross and her family lineage and possible interactions with George Washington that were not so sincere, just like with Adolf Hitler and Eva von Braun and others. There's always women, honeypot types, like I say, that are also oftentimes used in order to get information and control people, even if they know it or not. Like they're can be naive and duped into doing and saying things too. Oh my God. Yeah. Journals are all but extinct. Not wrong there. I don't know where I was going with that, but I don't know.
For example, from FEMA, the flood buyouts tend to occur for severe repetitive loss property, so places that have gone through several floods. For HUD, for example, if a state chooses after disaster to use its funds to allow for buyouts, then those homes that went through the flood are...
Oh, I was going to talk about, because the river was brought up, the Sky River. It probably wasn't Sky River, something like that. God damn it, where was it? Atmospheric River. I think there's tailwinds, there's ether, like these gases. I believe that the luminaries create some kind of like a whirlwind or spiral, possibly like around the center of the Earth, and there's aircrafts, whatever you want to call it, and drones and other satellites and stuff like that can also use these. What I don't know if you'd call it like a current or a river or whatever, but like these winds to travel, and obviously saving a lot of gas and energy utilized and stuff like that to use these winds, these tailwinds, whatever you want to call it, but they could be seen as currents, just like ocean currency. There's also currents that make these interesting patterns and stuff like that are utilized for travel. And you can even go from like the Gulf, like Florida, up into Europe, you know, like using these currents even, and other areas as well, if you take a look at that. And so, and yeah, I do believe that this is a contained environment. It's especially when you consider Boyle's law and other laws of nature. And gas requires a pressure, especially pressurized gas requires a container. And so this would have to be some kind of a contained firmament. I also believe that this is an electromagnetic reality. And so I believe that there would be absolutely some kind of a physical barrier in place that would make it where we would not be able to access beyond that. Because like that's like even with a magnet, right? Unless you're playing with the magnet and making its energy or force fields like increase using like another source, it's set in place, right? Like these fields, it's measurable, it's observable, it's repeatable, and so again, unless you like put in another energy source, you're not going to expand that field in order to operate within a bigger environment, right? And so like within like even like magnets, there's like a flat plane of inertia at the kind of the center, and I believe that that's where we're experiencing this multidimensional reality that's being projected via hyperboloids and toroidal fields, like on this flat plane of inertia in the center. And that's why even when we look at the visible and non-visible light spectrum, you see there's like, you've got the red, and then you've got the orange, yellow, green. Green's in the center. And then you have blue, indigo, and violet. I believe that even with that, within the color spectrum, we're lied to about that as well. Like I believe that the primary colors would be red, green, and violet. And then when you look at the non-visible light spectrum, that's definitely what they're calling dark matter. This is the non-visible light spectrum, ladies and gentlemen, in my humble opinion. And infrarays and gamma rays and ultraviolet, all of that stuff incorporated in that. Also measurable, observable, repeatable, and can be influenced and impacted just like these gravitational and radiating forces as well. Are also at play within the ether or this gaseous environment. And which is like majority nitrogen, and then you've got like the oxygen and yeah, I know. Yeah. And what they're calling fucking gravity too, like I don't understand how they can get away with saying like this 9.8 meters per second squared, like downward acceleration. And that's easily like, it's such a weak force that they're alleging it is. And to justify all this fudging water being stuck to a ball, spinning and whirling through space, and us like also being stuck on it somehow, like even sideways and upside down. People in the world right now, allegedly, they're literally sideways and upside down, and there's upside down ships being stuck. Like, come on. And then you see butterflies and birds and everything else, and everyone's like, oh no, they're just going with the atmos. I'm like, no, what the fuck are you talking about? If that tree is not spinning or moving that I'm seeing, but I'm feeling it. And I'm seeing the birds and the bees and like the smoke fly joints moving around. That's not going with the atmos. Like so I just get frustrated when people use those examples too. I'm so sorry. I'm gonna go. That's why I didn't want to talk about like the firmament, not because it's not a great question, but it's because I go on these tangents. And like for me, this is what I honestly think has made people. I lost all credibility, I guess, with a lot of people that used to look at my work as soon as I started talking about flat Earth. That's why, like a couple of years ago, I was like, fuck. I'm like, I have no choice, because if I'm going to talk about things like the Freedom Convoy and all this other stuff, like it's all connected. And I was talking about other things before that, but like during the Freedom Convoy before that, like I was saying, like, I'm like, you know what? I doxed myself. I said, I'm ex-special forces. I thought that would give me some credibility, but, and I'm like, I was tracking this, and this, and I was talking about January 6th, 2021. And I was saying Ray Epps and countless other crisis actors were involved that were government and non-government actors. And I'm like, there was a lot of fucking lies about that, and people within government that were lobbyists and currentists that wanted to use that, as another like 9/11, like fucked up things. And in order to create more measures and policies to further restrict people within like within the US. And I was saying the same thing's going to happen here. I'm like, just like World War II. I'm like, there, like the Reichstag. This was set on fire knowingly by Adolf Hitler and people that he had hired to set it on fire. They blamed it on an extremist communist who there's accounts. I've shown the court records where even SS Nazi soldiers that drove him to the Reichstag admitted and said on the record in court that the fires were already set when he drove this kid there. And that was literally, this was a fucking plant. He was baited. Like I've said, innocent people get baited all the time throughout fucking history. And then what happened days later after that? Because it was like, oh, these extremists, these communists, blah, blah, blah. Like they burned down the parliament and everyone exploited that. And most people within government knew, okay, that it was a staged event. A lot of them knew. A lot of them didn't, because they had to have like those legit reactions to make it look sincere and genuine. But like a lot of people knew. And a lot of people didn't from within government. And so freedoms were taken away. Then policies were put in place days later that further took freedoms away from people within Germany that people are not tracking either. And then he won under a majority government literally within the next election that was called shortly thereafter because he was popular, just like Justin Trudeau was trying to do here. We shouldn't have had an election during the pandemic, but he wanted it because he thought that he was going to get buy-in from people because when everyone was isolated, demoralized. We were living in fear. He was lying to us about a lot of stuff on the media and to people within cabinet. And he thought that people were listening to him and believing it, not realizing that people were still, despite all that the stuff that he was dealing to us, we were still trying to get the message out, even at risk to ourselves, even when he had his law enforcement goonies and other people that they duped. Okay. Because again, there's a lot of good people that are working in so many different trades, but like, they're not targeting them. They're going to go after the ones that can easily brainwash. They're going to go after the ones that can easily sway into doing shitty things, right? And there's a lot of tells. Yep. Oh, that'd be cool. Yeah, that's amazing and terrifying that could also be manipulated. Floods and the fucking floods.
On average, federal buyouts can take 2 to 5 years, though 80% of FEMA acquisitions are approved in less than 2 years.
And that's a long time to wait if your home has mud in it and you're trying to figure out whether to rebuild or not.
And it usually is predicated on which program is funding the buyout.
Some buyouts have happened in as little as 3 or 4 months, especially when the funding comes from the state or local level instead of the federal.
It was a letter sent through the mail, and it was sent to all of the homeowners on the street. Within 3 years of me being in the house was the first time I experienced the heavy flooding. It came up to my mailbox. You could not see the street. You could not see the beginning of my driveway. A couple of years later, the street flooded again. Because of the pandemic, finally got everything completed in December of 2022. Signed my contract for them to purchase my house in January of 2023, and then we had to start the appraisal process. Once they did the appraisal, I did a second appraisal. They allow you to get your own. The one thing I didn't like about that was my appraisal had to include the flood zone. And I thought because my house was not in the flood zone when I purchased it, that I didn't have to do that, but they said, yes, I do. Once I found a home.
They're saying the ends justify the means because it's largely men that are in the positions of leadership and or sociopathic women that are easily duped and or brainwashed into controlling the predatory type men, right? So you have women that are generally like they don't care or value life, or they're so far removed from it like that there's just no concern or care, and they're the ones that usually are that hire and or brainwash or fuck. Sorry for swearing. The predatory types in order to control them, in order to get them to do their bidding as well, right? So like a lot of men that use psychological warfare tactics, there's a lot of honeypots that are used, but there's also other elements of what they do, like even utilizing fucking minors, which is disgusting. And then utilized for blackmailing and bribing and controlling people, right? So, and this is like early on in their careers, elected officials, like, you're going to do this or we're going to do this. And this is where we need a lot less of that. And we need to have more moral, ethical people on the inside, and then warn people in advance, like, hey, if you're being groomed for these positions, just be aware that people may try to control you or do things to sway you into doing things that are criminal and disgusting. And that's a way to own you. And so if you don't want to be owned for the rest of your life and everyone else's life and destroy humanity in the process, maybe don't do that. Maybe if it does mean like risking your own life, because like I'm doing the same thing, I'm risking my life getting this information out. So the fact that people will like not risk their lives if you want to work for fucking government, like, oh my God, I get so fired up because I have people that I've known personally and loved that I buried overseas and more. And so to hear these like people that get so easily duped, people that are not even of hero types, they like business class their whole fucking lives, go to these like meetings and conventions and stuff like that, and get duped into like either fucking a minor or having sex with someone, whether it be male or female, and completely destroying their marriages or their relationships in the process, and then not wanting that to come out, and then being controlled for the rest of their lives by these assholes. It's so frustrating. And so so women think more about people and men think more about things on average. I'm saying there's a bell curve, right? There's extreme left and right on all of these friggin' behavioral models I'm talking about. And so men, generally speaking, I tend to go more towards like the STEM fields and or like the harder labor fields where they're more isolated for longer periods of time and again more manual labor. And women are more into like the nursing, teaching, caregiving, like caring for the family and stuff like that, or at least that used to be the case, right? We're getting brainwashed and duped into going beyond our normal roles, the roles we're supposed to be filling, and that's also causing a lot of societal issues and stuff like that as well. And yeah,
the process was easy. I told them when I could move, and we scheduled the closing. So the home that I was in.
And I'm going to go on this whole deviance thing. So like even in the law enforcement in Canada, in our military, a lot of people are getting out that are the alpha types, the leaders, like the good people, and or the more religious people, and or the more traditional and conservative people. Especially over the last 8 years, like a lot more people every single year, and especially since the pandemic, any of the leaders that were refusing the jab or refusing the mandates to be forced onto their subordinates, they were also kicked out. Okay, so I also know a lot of those people as well. So like that's also a thing, but they were the minority, unfortunately, and they're still in the courts fighting this. And yeah, it's been broken for a very long time, and it's deliberately so. And so even with this push from like for the wokeism and the awakeism, this has also unfortunately infected our law enforcement and our military to a point where people that are joining, it's like a lot more people are leaving, and the people that we need to have in the warrior types, the more educated types, they're leaving because they don't like this, what's happening right now with this transition, with hypersexualized and hypersexualizing and advocating for deviant sexual behaviors. A lot of people don't want that, and there's no business or place for that in these government positions. And I mean, no offense in that, but like you even have cops where there's pride, like there's rainbow vehicles now, and trans women, with like wigs on and like men and wearing lipstick and like and big tits and stuff like that. Again, like even law enforcement now like objectifying women, not even realizing it, and or pushing again like sexual deviance and perversions and what people consider like more deviant perverted behaviors, and like keep it in the bedroom. Like people keep it in the bedroom. I know conservative people that dress appropriately and don't talk about sex when they're at work, but they're very much into the role-playing stuff in their bedrooms. You know what I mean? Like you would never expect it. Like the librarian types, like they're very, very professional at work, and like they wear like the library clothes that look like brown or like neutral, and like their hair up and glasses and like no makeup and stuff like that. And they get home and they freaking, do like sexual acrobats with their husband. Keep it in the bedroom. Don't I don't have conversations about sex with my nieces and nephews, and you can literally ask them or my siblings, because I'm their aunt. And even this nonsensical stuff, like I would talk about like pronouns, of course, and I would talk about those things, or my thoughts on that only if asked, and only after the age of 18. And so like so now more people are getting out because of that, and a lot more people don't want to apply to be a cop or firefighter, like the alpha types, because they're like, I don't want to be part of that. I don't want to be part of that. And what I mean by that is like there's more diversity hires. It has nothing to do with competence, and so there's a lot more workplace incidents of aggression and violence and intolerance and impatience and workplace injuries, and there's so many different, like it's just like a friggin' mess. And lowering of fitness standards, lowering of educational standards, lowering of even language requirements, and so many things. And people are like, this is too much. This is too much. And even teachers are quitting at alarming rates because kids are so not at the level they're supposed to be with cognitively or physically or emotionally. And it's exhausting. And there's like more violence. There's more freakouts. There's more temper tantrums. And there's more. It's a mess. We're a mess. And the fact that we have morons in cabinet that are heads of education and heads of all of and they're ruining our country from the inside out, including our first responder type jobs. Because even a lot of firefighters I know, because like I'm in my 40s now, right? And the people that I had worked and operated with were like, even now I'm talking to them, like the guys in their 50s and 60s, and they're just getting out, and they're like, it was disgusting. Like the last few years, like just appalling, trying so hard to like, talk to cabinet and other people like that they know, like even like at the municipal level, like they're like, this is insanity. Like we can't, like this is not sustainable. And then just getting pushed back by Karens, male and female Karens, but like the very feminine, elitist, entitled ones. Okay, you know who I'm talking about. Those Karens are the ones that were pushing back and calling people again that were our literal heroes, that saying things that they don't know what they're talking about. And you even have these dummies like these Karens that try to like educate farmers, and then you have farmers that have shown like repeatedly educating these morons who have no idea what they're talking about, just pushing a mainstream media narrative and then getting smoked by people that are actually more educated and have more life experience than these entitled rich brats. And if you want to protest peacefully, because that's the way it should be, and even that, like I say, that protests are staged and planned and funded by people within government, lobbyists, corporatists within government. I'm not talking about the friggin' generals and stuff like that, but they're the ones that utilize those in order to cause division and distraction and paint people a certain way. And then it's also a psyops and surveillance, right? So you're getting license plates, you're getting vehicle makes, you're getting a demographic, right? Of people that are being watched and stuff like that. Anyway, where was it going with that? I don't even know.
Closed on a Thursday, and then I closed on this home the very next day.
Andrea said some of her neighbors took the buyout, but others didn't, especially those who didn't have a mortgage.
The estimates of homes in the United States who are at risk of being flooded ranges from somewhere to between 4 and 41 million by 2100. That's a big margin of error, but regardless, if we've spent the last 30 years buying out 45 to 50,000 homes, and in the next 80 years we need to do 4 million, we're nowhere near the scale that would be required.
The FEMA grants are funded through a cost share, where the federal...
So why are they surging in more and more people when the U.S. just said that they don't have homes for like some, I don't know if they said in this video, but they don't have homes for 7.8 million people right now in the U.S. I don't know if you know that. They don't have homes for over 7.8 million people. And this was like a couple of years ago. So definitely higher now. Why are they accepting more people in, including not closing the borders yet? Why is Canada doing the same thing? Why are we surging people in? Because there are currentists and lobbyists that are that are running the show, that are not moral or ethical people, and they need to be fired and they need to be investigated.
Government provides 75% of the money, and the remaining 25% comes from a different agency, the state or local government, or the homeowner. In some instances, the 2021 bipartisan infrastructure law can cover 90% of the buyout with federal funds. The non-federal funds are generated straight from the tax revenue or
income tax revenue. Sometimes they're coming from a sales tax. There's a couple communities who put in a sales tax specifically for this issue. Sometimes it's a bond measure. Sometimes it's volunteering the fire department's time, for example, to demolish some of these bought out homes, or it's other voluntary donations in kind.
So we're paying for people to fuck us over, move us out of our homes, get us into 15-minute cities that are surveyed and controlled, and then completely fuck over our country again. Because this has been done before. And it's been done before more than once. It's been done before more than twice. It's been done more than three times. Come on, wake up.
Services or others that are meeting those requirements.
Some communities may not have the funds to support their part of a plan like this and worry the buyouts could chip away at their already stretched tax base.
Downtownship's mayor says without its Bayside sections, the rural community's already small tax base would be decimated.
We're not going to have any ratables or revenue left, and I don't see anything else except bankruptcy.
We're a hurting community in terms of we are built out. We're 2 square miles, and every home we knock down, we lose the tax revenues, and there's nothing to replace it.
Individual homeowners may also be concerned about how much money they'll be able to make in the sale.
The water was up to here.
The idea is that the government will buy the home for the same value that someone could have sold their home on the private market for a private sale.
But that doesn't mean every homeowner will be happy with their buyout offer.
Right now, the way the market is, it wouldn't be, it wouldn't be to our advantage.
How much would you lose?
At least $100,000.
It's not just our home, it's our entire life. It's everything that we've worked for and built up to this point that we're gambling with.
You're typically going to run into a situation in which the value of the buyout offer is not going to match what it's reasonably going to cost for the recipient to relocate to a higher, drier, safer location outside of the floodplain.
That could be because the average cost of a house in the US has jumped 3.5% from 2022 to 2023.
The house originally sold for $135,000. That was back in 2006. The appraised value was $325,000. So we paid off the remainder of my mortgage. The new home was $437,000. Obviously, home values gone up. I did buy a nicer home than what I was in. If I'm going to move, I need to get what I want. This house is 3 bedrooms, 2 baths as well, but there is also a half bath. Even though I put a good bit of money down on this house, my mortgage still doubled. I had a 3.62 mortgage interest rate. It went up more than 2 points. I have a 5.99% interest rate now. And then the amount of the house, it was $206,000 for the mortgage, whereas then when I originally bought the other house was $135,000.
The actual execution of the buyout work is done by the state or local government.
And so those local governments can make lots of decisions that are appropriate for their context. How many homes they want to make offers to, how much additional assistance they want to make to help people relocate afterwards, how they use the land after it's purchased, and on and on.
Larger buyout programs can offer additional incentives for the homeowner. For example, the Blue Acres program in New Jersey is able to negotiate lower mortgage rates for buyout recipients when they look to relocate. If a homeowner still holds a mortgage, the balance will be paid off to the bank directly. The land is then deeded to the local government with restrictions on how it can be used.
You can't go in and redevelop. There's a few very, very small exceptions, like if you made a community garden or a park, you can put a restroom. But that's basically it. Like that's the level of reconstruction you could do.
Ideally, the land is maintained as some sort of public benefit, like a park or a swale, which is a depression in the land that can collect floodwaters to protect the other homes in the neighborhood. Some municipalities even create wildlife corridors. Others won't have the funds to maintain or transform the land, and it simply remains a vacant lot.
So again, some of the articles out there coming out at the same time. Here's why FEMA, right? Just like that video. Here's why FEMA has spent $4 billion to destroy flood-prone homes. Can I repeat that? Our government is spending, remember, this is our money, okay? They like that. The way they talk about it now, people out there don't even realize that it's their money. It's almost like they feel like when they pay taxes, which they do in a sense, that they're giving their money to the mob, right? Like, we have to pay it. Well, you have to pay it, but your government is held accountable for the money. First of all, they're supposed to tell you where your money goes and what it's going towards, okay? And they really don't for the most part, other than saying, well, we're giving it to Ukraine, right? Well, now they're telling you, hey, the government is spending $4 billion to destroy flood-prone homes. And people should go, wait a minute, we're in debt. We have a lot of homeless people. Well, shouldn't we be building homes instead of destroying them? Well, they're destroying them because, of course, FEMA is going to be herding you out of these areas into areas they want you to live. Mm-hmm. These will be areas that are completely controlled via technology. You won't be able to farm. You won't be able to do anything on this land except, of course, be compliant. So this article says just an inch of flood.
FEMA camps, internment camps, concentration camps, which, isolation camps. Like, I don't even know what you would want to call them. There will likely be because there are these. I've been talking about this for years as well. There's places outside of even Ottawa, like major cities. Throughout all first world countries, there are places that are set up to host or hold large quantities of people. Wake up! Where have we seen this before? World War II? It wasn't in Germany where the largest ones were created. It was in Poland, Hungary, Ukraine, etc. It's terrifying stuff. I just wish we had people to fucking just like peacefully just be like, no, thank you.
Water can generate tens of thousands of dollars in property damage. Homeowners trying to move and start over after such a disaster might find a surprising buyer for their home. The government. Yeah, don't be suspicious about it, right? Just an inch of flood water, and the government's coming in and offering you money for your home, and everybody's okay with this. The FEMA, Federal Emergency Management Agency, has spent around $4 billion assisting with the purchases of 50,000 plus damaged homes going back to 1989. These homes have been marred by floods to the point where the homeowners decide to move away. Listen to this. To encourage homeowners not to sell to new buyers and stop what Siders calls that terrible game of hot potato, FEMA's hazard mitigation grant program supports local and state governments in purchasing the homes, demolishing them, and turning the property into public land and what are called flood plan buyouts. So let me repeat that. The government is, so what we're seeing is the government mapping out where they want us to live, right? Where they want to eventually move us. They have this blueprinted out. We don't see it yet.
And there's also going to be, because there's now so much homelessness in tent cities and stuff like that in and around major cities all over Canada, including Ottawa. And we are like, we are comparable to Russia, like Moscow areas for the coldest temperatures, like where that people live in. And like the coldest temperatures on record, just to be clear. And so we have now more and more people that are going to have to refinance, remortgage, and not going to be able to afford it. Just like myself, I am struggling, but I had to like remortgage just for a 2-year period because my mortgage almost doubled last year. Okay, because I was on a 5-year fixed term, obviously because of the unpredictability of the market and stuff like that. But we can, through major banking systems, they only give you a 5-year term. And then you have to like renegotiate like your mortgage and stuff like that. And I got so fucked over, and so did other people. Okay, by people like Chrystia Freeland and Stephen Guilbeault and Justin Trudeau, all of those motherfuckers. And so there's gonna be more and more people that are gonna have to refinance. A lot of people did last year, and more people are going to be this year and then next year. So there's even going to be more homelessness of Canadians that have been here for generations, even that can't afford their homes anymore. And it's at no reason for that. It's not at their fault. It's not their fault at all for these reasons. It's literally like for myself, the same thing. Not my fault. And I've been calling this out and saying that like that with the printing of the money and giving CERB and all this stuff, that we were devaluing the currency, and that in itself is treason. And these are actually like military tactics that are utilized on people and have been utilized before. So we're saying Chrystia Freeland, by her literally doing that is a literal war crime. Like what you're doing, like, and it's creating this Hegelian dialect, that like the chaos and stuff like that we're seeing now, right? So like we have like crippling homelessness now, and addiction and suicides and so many other things, mental health issues by design. And so if people just fired these people to begin with and got better people in, then that would have been over too, right? But no. And so we have more and more people this year that are going to be homeless and or living, you know, and like they're going to have to like live with other people, rent, and or, you know, figure it out, like leave Canada. A lot of people are doing that. A lot of people are going to leave Canada. And so like there's 500,000 Canadians that are leaving every single year under Justin Trudeau, but especially since the pandemic. And that's why they're also surging areas. And then there's going to be people that are going to be cold because it gets cold in Canada. And so by October, we're going to have people that are going to be forced out of forced out of hotels and schools and churches. Actually, those would be the ones targeted the most, would be schools and churches, because people are going to try to, again, we're trying to make people less religious, less moral. So there's already been an attack on churches and stuff, and demonizing them, and the fires, especially Christian churches, which people are not talking about. And so they're now going to host people that they're surging in. We're only like a couple of hundred people are profiting off of surging these people in that are getting, you know, like their shares and stocks go up and their bribes go up. But it's also causing more more crime, right? And the crime that's being committed in Ottawa, like there was even a murder last year in Ottawa, and this was people that were immigrants that had only been here for a short period of time, and a clash of cultures. So we're having culture wars in Canada now in major cities, and people getting like tortured and slaughtered. Okay, so trauma that we're not used to or that are accustomed to and stuff like that. And people don't care, right? Because these people, these entitled rich brats, they don't live in these areas. They live in gated communities, or they don't even live in Canada. And it's disgusting.
Yeah, we don't know it yet. But what we could do is watch these places that are getting hit with hurricane after hurricane after hurricane, tornado after tornado after tornado. And then, of course, watch how FEMA moves in, right? So they're coming in and they're saying, don't sell your house, okay? Because it's a terrible game of hot potato. So you might make more money selling this land to somebody, but you should sell it to us because the person who buys the land is going to get flooded again, right? And no one's suspicious about why the floods are occurring because, of course, there's the boogeyman, the built-in boogeyman called climate change, right? This boogeyman exists so that you don't question what the government is doing. And of course, if you question it, you don't understand science, or you're questioning science, which is now officially illegal, except of course, if you're questioning if men can have babies, because apparently that's a sane ideology to have in 2024. So you saw the clips in there. Okay. You saw these people talking about, well, I was able to buy, I ended up having to move. I bought a more expensive home with higher interest rates. So we're allowing the government, just to start off, I mean, just think about this. We're allowing the government to use weather against us. Okay. No one's ever going to understand that because it's too hard for their brains to grasp. Like I said, they've used things, quotes like you can't control Mother Nature, et cetera, to convince you that it's impossible for them to do this, even though everybody out there who's paying attention can see all the patents the government has. We can see Operation Popeye. We can see it all, right? Then we see strange storm patterns hitting specific areas over and over and over again. Then the government is coming in. They're not just setting up FEMA. They're telling people, like they are in Maui as well, that they're not going to be able to rebuild where their house once sat. But the government will give them our tax money to seize that land. And does it go back to us? Well, they tell you that it's public property. It's public property that nobody can buy. So it's technically government property. So the government is buying land of civilians with our money, and then they're deeming it land that nobody can build on. And of course, don't worry, because eventually everybody who is giving into this doesn't realize they'll be living in FEMA concentration camps, because that's essentially what they are. So this is the same organization that's piling up coffins on the side of the road, that's building pop-up communities, trying to make it look like this dystopian hell. People out there are like, this is great. Hey, everybody's got the same little cubicle, the same little tiny home, which is another thing, by the way. I've talked about over the years how they've put all this propaganda out there about tiny homes, HGTV, all these channels have continued to pump it out. And people out there are like, I want to live in a tiny home. I want to. They don't even realize that they're getting conditioned into eventually living in a tiny home. The government is going to be giving out tiny homes to people. You're not going to have to pay for it. People are like, that's great. That's fine. And we're all going to be prisoners in these little cubicles. It's literally going to be like Ready Player One. They'll put a nice little garden out front. You have 5 feet between your neighbor. It's the illusion of freedom. Okay, it's exact. We're seeing it all over the place, popping up in Canada. They just did one in Canada. Did anyone out there see it? They just did it in Canada. Okay, so that's eventually what it is. And if you look at FEMA and the housing they're building, this is permanent housing that they label temporary housing. You just never get out. They should just call it Hotel California or Hotel FEMA. Okay, and people look at it like, that's so nice of them to do this. That's so nice of our government to give us a new home after you look at it and you go, they're killing you with a smile. They're the one destroying your home, and then they're giving you maybe what was, what is like 1/10 of what your home used to be, a little cubicle for you to live in. But if you actually realize, if you put prison bars on that, okay, it'd be the same exact thing. But people out there don't realize it. They don't see what's happening. They're killing you with a smile. They're stealing from you with a smile, and they're imprisoning you with a smile. And this is just proof. This article, this video clip I showed you.
They want to.
Here's why. Ladies and gentlemen, here's why FEMA is spending $4 billion. When the government's supposedly $33 trillion in debt, they're spending $4 billion to help destroy homes when there's a housing crisis. Oh, don't think any further than what the article tells you, folks. If you do, you're a conspiracy nut. They want to help. Don't you get it? They want to help. They want to buy people's land for less than what it's worth with our tax money, and then not let anybody else ever buy it again, because they've got plans for you. And again, they're hurting you like cattle. I thank everybody for being here. Hope you're all doing well. God bless you as always, and your families.
Okay, one more after this, because I do have to get ready, because like I said, I have a new home insurance plan, because my other one, because I was in a log cabin or fireplace, whatever the stupid thing was, I was not approved again, even though I was already pre-approved. More and more companies are doing that within Canada because they're being financially incentivized to do this stuff, right? So this is why we need to push back peacefully and educate people. And these Karens that try to distract and divide or tempt people, you need to wake up to that stuff, right? And be aware when people are talking to you, when they're coming to conventions and committees and these panels from other countries and stuff like that, and seen as experts, maybe don't just take what they're saying with a grain of salt or whatever the expression is, but like actually look into it and make your own decisions based on your own critical thinking skills and your own research and stuff like that from within, right? Where we're getting needlessly duped, and it's so easy and peaceful to just stop this, right? We just need to have people that are educated enough to see things for what they are and see that people are trying to exploit them. There are hired lobbyists, okay, and corporatists who are, again, like are profiting so much off of all of this stuff. And we just have to see it for what it is, right? And so these are not people, if you say no, they're not going to beat you up, right? Like a Karen, you know, like coming to your house saying, like, you know what I mean? And so that's minor stuff. It should be government people that are speaking out on this stuff and pushing this peacefully. But anyway, it has to be them. It has no choice. And the only way that we can get more trust within our government and media, our news media, is if they start speaking up to the reality of what's going on. They have to. And then if people want to do protests, it would be things like just not showing up and giving Starbucks coffee to the major cities now, where these people are working, these entitled little rich brats that are hurting everyone's life in rural areas and stuff like that, and destroying our lives and making people homeless. Maybe these entitled rich brats that have never suffered for anything in their entire lives, maybe just like not deliver the Starbucks. Again, like keep obviously supplying of goods and services and especially medical stuff and food. But there are things that are frivolous that most people in the world like have no access to, you know, especially like even in rural areas, right? Like these Uber Eats and fucking stuff like that. Like maybe like all this convenience that these assholes have, maybe limit it a little bit, right? Because they're also the ones that are creating like that, like this need for more people, foreign workers to come in, because they're doing more Uber Eats. There's like more deliveries that are needed, more packages. Like people are way over consuming in these 15-minute city centers that we're seeing in Canada, all over the place, especially Ottawa, and they're not understanding that like that's your mess, right? People outside of these cities and stuff like that, we've lived the same way for generations. Like there's like this increase in all these like goods and services and stuff like that. That is literally people that are coming in and or getting swarmed into the cities and using those services and being more lazy. Like I know a lot of women in Ottawa, and they're in their 40s. I've said this before. They don't know how to cook. They don't know how to cook. They have never even cooked for a man, or themselves, let alone a family. So like, there's no family dinners. Like I'm even talking to a guy in his 40s. I'm like, he's like, oh, what'd you do for Easter? And I said like, oh, I had like a lot of my family come over, like almost 20 people, and it was amazing. And I had like an Easter egg hunt for like the kids, and chocolate. And we had like ham and roast and mashed potatoes and carrots and all this stuff. And then we had this and this, and he's like, oh wow, we've never had that. And this guy was married before and stuff like that too for many, many years and has kids, and he's never fucking had that. And he was married and he had kids, and I'm shocked. And he's in his 40s, and I'm like, oh my God. Wow. And I'm hearing that a lot, right? Like, and so women are buying a lot more things in these areas, and men. And then with the Uber Eats, like every single night, like and every single day, these deliveries and the fast food and stuff like that, you're creating the fucking mess that we're in. Not me. And I'm paying more taxes and this carbon scam, like it's impacting me way more now. And these people in these fucking cities, again, because like they're commuting or they're walking to their office job and stuff like that. They don't have to travel. Okay, so like and all the supply services that are deliver into cities, like they're all fucked over now too, including my stepfather. And his company might go under now too this year because the increase in carbon tax. They're a truck company, short and long haul, but like it's a Canadian company. Like they can't afford this either. And so you have people that barely make any money. Like he's not making ends meet. He's barely making ends meet because life has doubled. Living costs have doubled in the last year or two. And so he's not making more money, but he's like, and so he's working, and he's in his 60s, working 6 days a week. And these fucking idiots in town are like, oh my God, further taking from my stepfather. Driving truck for over 40 years, I think, with breaks in between, obviously, but he has like 3 million miles logged, probably more now, and no accidents, no speeding tickets to that whole time.
I want to make people sick. And what I do here is the virus is not necessarily the bug. The virus is what I put over the internet.
Yeah.
Let me show you how I can crash a system pretty easily. I affect key individuals here.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Here and here. And then I take another community in the back of the room. I affect key individuals there. And then I take another community. I affect key individuals there. What I tell you it's going to do is it's going to produce paranoia, anxiety, and sleeplessness. What I've just done is I've recruited every paranoid hypochondriac to think that they have whatever that is. I've used salient and sentinel cases, and I create essentially a legion of what's known as the worried well. They now flood emergency rooms. They flood their clinicians. The CDC responds back. It's both a short and a long Moore's effect. Moreover, I can create particular neuromicrobiologicals that may have a much longer duration of action. For example, modified Zika virus. And what I can then do is, as a consequence of that, is I can affect subsequent generations to incur a public health morbidity and mortality effect that then creates an increased economic and perhaps social burden. Long war scenario. One of the newest developments is that nanoparticulate matter can be stabilized for distribution. You're not aware of what nanoparticulate matter is. It's that matter which exists on a scale of 1 × 10⁻⁹. Very, very small. Smaller than a cell. And we can manufacture materials that have discrete properties that can be controlled by virtue of bioengineering and their physical chemistry. To auto-aggregate, to be able to aggregate in particular areas based upon their biological and or chemical sensitivity. But now we go one step further. Most recently, just a few weeks ago, it was announced that you could then aerosolize nanomaterials. And go one step further, I can create small robotic units, controllable robotic units at the nanoscale, and that these too can be aerosolized to create a nanoswarm of biopenetrable materials that you cannot see, that can penetrate all but the most robust biochemical filters, that are able to integrate themselves through a variety of membranes, mucous membranes, and wherever, mouth, nose, ears, eyes, can be then uptaken into the vascular system to create clumping, can affect the vascular system of the brain, or can directly diffuse into the brain space, and these can be weaponized. And they can be done in such a level that their presence is almost impossible to detect, and as such, the attribution becomes exceedingly difficult to demonstrate. How much of this material would I need? Take a look. This is the front of my pen. This amount of nanomaterial, if be able to maintain and sustain with regard to its deliverability and aerosolization, could in fact affect all of you, or based upon where I come from, New York City, all yous. Look at this. Look at this. I'm carrying that material. Would you see it? Would I have to lug a giant weapon into the room? No, I wouldn't. And what if, in fact, I utilized some form of an unmanned aerial device or unmanned ground device as a delivery vehicle? Something like a drone or a bug. Could I do something with that?
Aerosolized nanotechnology. Smart dust, nanorobots floating in the air, infecting people. In fact, they started talking about all sorts of different programs using bugs, mosquitoes to inject people with.
Mosquitoes, like Bill Gates has, like manufacturing of mosquitoes all over the world, but including in North America, in the U.S. And when they were released, within a year or whatever, there were people that were contracting diseases that were not even heard of in that area ever before, like even like the Zika virus and anyway, so many different viruses, and we need to wake up to this stuff. Like why are people working to create these things? And people think that is building immunity and it's going to help with malaria and stuff like that. Like people are so duped into thinking that like releasing these fucking mosquitoes with these diseases in them is a good thing. You know, even like giving us like meat allergies and stuff like that, that they're even like trying to do, guys and girls. Like all you need to do is just like stop and then just educate in a peaceful way. Like anyone that's thinking that this is going to be like where there's aggression or violence, like it's not the answer at all. And you're literally going to die in the process or go to jail. And so that's not even worth it for you or your family or your community, especially if you're someone that's awake. Okay, so what you just did is you just like fucked over your chances of ever educating other people, which is the important thing here. Because there's even apparently studies that have been done where animals on different island nations or other continents, where very interesting things they've done with this with monkeys, where monkeys, after a certain threshold of monkeys, learned a behavior that assisted with their survival and their advancement. It seemed that like after a certain threshold of like 100 learning it, it just seemed to be like something within like the consciousness. Like this is really freaking weird stuff. Like again, this is not me saying this. There's actually a lot of studies on this. But then internationally, it seemed that there were like people were observing like monkeys just so happened to adopt like after like, these tendencies and stuff like that around the same time or shortly thereafter. And so that's the same thing. Like if you are peaceful and loving and caring and nurturing and compassionate, which is what people need in this friggin' world right now, people are going to be more apt to want to talk to you. You're going to like radiate and have an aura of, like that's going to counteract the negativity and stuff like that as well. I know that sounds ridiculous. And, but then you're not wasting your life. Like, and I mean that in a peaceful way, right? Like, so like, right now, this has been done before, right? Like people are saying that like this needs to be in a way that's not peaceful possibly. And I say like, that's all been done before. And it just made things worse. It just made things a lot worse. And then more people stuck in like the lower levels of consciousness and the lower level emotions and at all levels. And I'm like, that has not worked before, right? And all the lessons that we're getting from people that are seen as the heroes of the world, these prophets and deities and stuff like that. What was their message? What was their message? Peace. And I'm a warrior saying this. So like, I'm not like, I don't think it doesn't make you a pussy to say that. It's it actually makes you stronger. Like if you're someone that's able to manage your chaos and manage your aggression, even in the face of adversity, that makes you a warrior. That makes you more of a warrior than someone that just like freaking loses it again, because like that's accessing your lower level emotions. And we need more people that debate, public debates even, and people that are able to educate other people in that kind of a platform and be given that. So even yesterday, for example, no, the other day, sorry, Monday, Austin Whitsitt was debating this guy on InfoWars, and the guy was wearing a suit and glasses, and he had a whole team on his side, and Austin didn't have anyone on it. It was just him, and he still debunked this guy and easily, obviously, again, made this guy look like an idiot. If you know what you're talking about, or if you understand science and what they were talking about, right? Because that other guy from InfoWars, like all of his explanations were ridiculous and lame. And the ones that people like Craig have used now for years, right? And it's like, let's move on from that. Oh my God, like that's been debunked so many times. You guys are using the same stuff and you sound so stupid because you're just not moving on from it. Because we that's next. Like that's been proven wrong. And Alex Jones show on InfoWars. And Austin is so patient and kind and understanding and intelligent, not educated. He's intelligent. He's autodidactic and stuff like that as well. And he would likely educate more people than someone that does something violent, right? Because like that's evil people do that. And so if people can get on Joe Rogan, for example, that's reaching a wider audience. Getting on Russell Brand, et cetera, that's reaching a wider audience. And then if you know people that are working in the higher levels of government, for example, would be reaching out to them, asking them to go for a coffee, asking them to go for a friggin' lunch or whatever. And then just having a talk with them and don't bring in the crazier conspiracy theories out there. Stick to something where you have facts and that you can articulate well. And then that again, you can show objective, repeatable, observable, measurable data regarding, because if you bring in things that you can't prove or like you're kind of like doesn't like, you're going to lose credibility. And so this is coming from experience, by the way. And so start with things that you can definitely back up easily, that they might not be aware of or tracking. And then also come at it with like, look, I don't want to argue or debate or any of that stuff. Like just say things like, I respect you. I respect the relationship. I would like to continue to maintain this relationship and stuff like that. And there's just some things that that I would just love to discuss that may elicit emotional responses in you, and that's fair. And I'm like, I don't mean to offend you. I've said this. I'm like, I don't want to offend you or upset you with what I'm sharing. However, like I just really care about you enough in this relationship enough where I want to at least try to give you this information because it's helped me and I wanted to help you. And then that kind of gets me more of an in, right? Instead of like screaming and yelling or name calling and stuff like that. Like it's, coming at it in a softer way, which a lot of men it's harder for them to do. And I get that. That's why like I reiterate that always, like just try to come at things like less intense.
Nanotech. Once in the blood, it turns into a neural network, a neural web, a DARPA web inside the brain. And they're running neural narratives through this network to make people hear voices and think things and to listen and to watch what people are doing, turning people into a computer.
So yeah, all been done before, nothing new under the sun. So it would be nice if we didn't fall for. Weird. I don't know if you heard that or not. Anyway, I do have a lot of stuff that I have to do in order to prepare for a lot of different things today that I have on the go. So I will leave it at that. And I hope that everyone has a wonderful rest of your day.